Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has announced that Eskom has agreed to bring in external engineers and auditors. But there appears to be a conflict of interest for the expert engineers. And Enel Green Power is currently constructing 4 wind farms in South Africa and is a major benefactor of the Independent Power Producers Program. Now, the Public Enterprises Department is yet to explain this conflict, but calls are mounting from unions and experts that it shouldn't be allowed in. Well, reporter Govan Whittles is in the newsroom. He joins me now. Govan, what do we know about this Italian company that's said to be one of those that is brought in to help with the situation at Eskom?
Well, we know that this is certainly one of the world's leading energy companies, and they specialize in providing different forms of energy, whether it be solar, wind, also hydroelectric, also biomass, and of course coal. And this is the company that used to be the Eskom of Italy. Enel was once the public state entity providing electricity for Italy, and since then it has expanded into a major global player, but remaining a public company. And yesterday, the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, announced that the Eskom board has agreed to bring aboard Enel to not only provide some technical assistance, but also to send 2 coal experts to South Africa's coal power stations to assess the state of these power stations and get to the bottom of what happened that led to that stage 4 load shedding. So far, we know the explanation is that there was a total of almost 7 units that tripped, but exactly how those units tripped and how that led to the worst stage of load shedding being implemented across the country has not yet been explained, and that is what we presume Enel will be coming on board to explain. But of course, the conflict here arises from their involvement in renewable energy and their contracts with the Independent Power Producing Program. 4 of them in total, and they range from wind farms in the Northern Cape to a wind farm that's currently under construction in the Amatola district in the Eastern Cape. So this is a company that has a lot of interest in South Africa's energy future, not only Eskom and the coal future, but also that renewable energy.
Govan, I'm interested to know what have been the union's response to this, because they've, of course, consistently said that despite numerous attempts to get information from the minister on who these IPPs are run by and for more transparency, they simply have not won.
Yeah, the unions are being caught on the back foot here. I've approached many of them for information about Enel, and they've had to go and research about it themselves. That's, of course, because, as you've said, information about who these IPPs are and who these companies are that are benefiting from the program is not readily available. We know one example which raises the issue of conflict is the South African billionaire Patrice Motsepe's company, African Rainbow Energy and Power, of which Brian Gordhan, the former executive at Eskom, was appointed as CEO. So that's a company that is involved in the IPP program. And because of that conflict, Brian Gordhan then resigned from the task team set up by President Cyril Ramaphosa to assess the sustainability of Eskom. And that was one of the first instances where we saw an executive involved in the renewable energy sector, involved in the IPP program, resigning because he was then asked to serve on a task team that's looking into matters at Eskom. And that's essentially where this issue of conflict comes from. Can Enel, which has significant stake in the renewable energy sector in South Africa, then be brought on as an expert advisor to assess the state of what's going on at Eskom's coal-powered operations while they have these programs? And the latest press release, I must say, came from Enel yesterday, where they were announcing the construction of this wind farm in the Amatola district in the Eastern Cape. So Enel certainly having 2 interests at this point, and whether that will be allowed is unclear at this stage. Of course, we have reached out to the Department of Public Enterprises for an explanation on how they justify what appears to be a conflict at this point, and we're waiting for them for some clarity on how this is allowed.
Govan, let's then also talk about the issue of audit. It was again emphasized by Minister Pravin Gordhan following his meeting with the Eskom board that there will be now 2 separate audits that take place. One into the assets that Eskom has to try and find out what exactly is going wrong, and another will be a forensic investigation, a forensic audit that takes place. So When you look at all of these investigations, they cost money, and even bringing in personnel, it costs money. Where's Eskom going to get this money that they obviously don't have right now?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think that the answer to that question may be in the sustainability report from the task team, which included energy experts from across the different fields in South Africa. So that report was handed to President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 31st of January, and that sets out what this task team believes is possible financially for Eskom and how they could possibly juggle around some funds to make available this funds for the audits that are going on. But remember that the audits would also be internal to some extent and would have been budgeted for. Here we're talking about the most important one would be the forensic audit, and something that energy expert Ted Blom referred to as a fraud audit, which needs to take place, and that would certainly require some speciality from outside of the company. But the funds for that has not been explained yet, and of course that report on the sustainability of Eskom has also not been made available to the unions or to the public yet.
Sounds like the unions have been given more room than Govan to keep pushing for transparency when it comes to the IPPs. And it's also an issue that has been raised by opposition parties. Both the DA and the EFF have raised questions around who are these organizations that have entered into agreements in the renewable energy sector.